As some of you all know, I made a video not too long ago letting you guys know that I actually called my engagement off. And for myself, the few relationships that I've been in, when those relationships end for whatever reason, I always like to take some time to reflect, ask myself, what part did I play? What transpired during this time that I didn't like? What did I allow myself to lose myself? What happened? What can I do different the next go around, right? Whenever that is. So I wanted to speak on in conjunction to the other videos that I've been making about childhood trauma, my own childhood trauma, inner child healing, things like that. How those things have affected my decision making up to this point. I wanted to actually speak with you guys about how childhood trauma affects our relationship choices. Like I've said in any other of my videos, we really don't realize how our childhood trauma affects the relationships that we choose as adults. And it took me, I'll be 35 in June, and it's taking me this long to really sit down with myself and totally understand where a lot of these things come from. So this video is for anyone who has wondered why they keep repeating the same relationship patterns, why they're drawn to certain types of people, or why intimacy can both feel like a craving and a challenge. Because I've gone through that as well. This conversation is going to be honest and eye-opening. And I want everybody to know that any of these videos that I make, they not only do they come from personal experience and personal life lessons that I've learned, but they're also coming from a place of love. I've spoken about before, the whole purpose of the Good Homegirl is to, make y'all feel healed. Not healed, I'm sorry. Make y'all feel heard. I've been in plenty of situations, where I just really wanted to know that whether it was a friend, whether it was whoever, that I was cared about. And that was really why I created this platform, was for people like me to understand that you are seen, you are heard, you are cared about. And if nobody else gets you, I do. So let's get into it. Let's start by unpacking what childhood trauma actually is. When we hear the word trauma, we often think of extreme events, abuse, neglect, or catastrophic situations. And while those are very real and impactful, trauma can also be more subtle. For myself, what I've been learning in the work that I've been doing on myself in these past few months actually, is that I spent so much time remembering the tower moments in my life from my childhood. So my parents' custody battle, evil stepmom, being molested at a very young age, things like that, that once I kind of worked through those things and moved that top layer out the way, it was so many things underneath it. And then there were things that were coming up that I had totally forgot about, because my direct response to my childhood trauma was I would disassociate and I would dump. Meaning that if something traumatic happened to me, I'm somewhere mentally on an island in Jamaica, and I erase that thing like it never happened. But in the work that I've been doing on myself, it'll be something as small as a picture. So the other day, I don't know if you guys, you us 80s and 90s babies, y'all remember the Jelly Roll gel pens, right? And I was going to this school that was predominantly Caucasian, and I thought I had a friend in this girl named Holly, and Holly had gel pens. And I remember we used to sit at the lunch tables after we had our lunch, and we would color and draw and do whatever we did with these gel pens. Well, one day she lost a couple of the pens, and I guess her parents had asked her what happened to them. And she, instead of just saying oh, I lost them, or oh, I left them on the playground, she told them that I stole them. And so Of course, her parents reported it to the school. And when I tell y'all, I've always, up until like recently, I was always the person that tried to shrink myself. I was so used to not being seen that like being seen was uncomfortable for me. So the last thing that I would have done was anything to bring any kind of attention to myself. Like, I didn't even realize that the school people even knew who I was. You know what I mean? And then I was just going through utter chaos at home. And so the last thing I wanted to do, of course, was one, get in trouble, or like two, create an unsafe environment for myself while I'm at school. Now, keep in mind, y'all, all of this is happening and I'm like 9. I'm in like the third or fourth grade. And so her parents come to the school, they tell them what's going on, and they reach out to my dad. And when I get home, I'm beyond in trouble. That's the best way to put that one. I'm beyond in trouble. No one ever asked me. No one ever went through my belongings. I was just automatically in trouble. And for the sake of not having to issue a trigger warning and not triggering myself, I won't go into detail about what happened to me, but I will just say that no one really even took the time to see if that was something that I actually did. And I wasn't even that kind of kid. You know what I mean? And she did, like, the next day apologize for lying on me. But I did end up telling her, like, what happened to me as a result of her lie. And even that is something that it might have been small to her, but it opened up so many wounds for me, because I don't know if they just believed it because I was the only black girl in the class and this was a white girl saying, oh, she did this. I recently in my class had to do a speech on epigenetics and memory, and I spoke on, how we pass down generational traumas. And for black people, we're put in certain spaces where when we see a person that is not of color, our fight or flight response is automatically activated. And even now, when I'm telling you all this story, I can't help but feel that sense of betrayal that I felt even that early in age. And it honestly did give me like the feeling of this is what they do. Now, obviously, like, this has not been every single person that I've come in contact with, but it was, a very major milestone in turning point in how I really, really started to like understand that like nobody's coming to save you. You're just going to go through this until either, one of them get rid of you or one of them leave. And then once, her and my dad got divorced and things got better. But I just say that to say that, yes, it's definitely for myself. There's a lot of catastrophic events, but there's also those like subtle ones that I forgot about that are now coming back up. Or it may be something at random where it was like a boyfriend that I had and they weren't safe. And I didn't realize that they weren't safe until they did something to make me feel unsafe or to put me in some sort of harm's way. And I look back at that and I'm like, oh my God, I totally forgot that happened. Whereas like 34-year-old me, 35-year-old me would have definitely went back and told 16, 17-year-old me like, girl, get the fuck away from there. That's not, no, So anyway, the subtle trauma can definitely be as simple as growing up in a home where emotions weren't validated. It could be feeling like you were only loved when you achieved something. I've spoken about that a lot. It could also be that you had to grow up too fast because your caregivers weren't able to meet your needs. I'm definitely a parentified oldest daughter. I definitely raised or had some part in raising and being responsible for all 4 of my siblings. And I'm the oldest everything. I'm the oldest granddaughter, oldest niece, oldest daughter, oldest everything. So you guys could imagine. And for me, that turned into me feeling the need to take care of everybody. Because once I got out of, my dad's house and I was an adult, it was like I was already conditioned, between my own trauma from my mom and the shit with evil stepmom and just life, right? It conditioned me to think that I only had a purpose if I was serving other people. And that's probably why I'm in the beauty industry as it is. Trauma is less about the event itself and more about how it impacts you. It leaves imprints on your nervous system, your self-worth, and the way that you relate to others. As children, we look to our caregivers for safety and love. When those needs aren't consistently met, it can create what are known as insecure attachment styles. And this is where things start to spill over into our adult relationships. So let's get into attachment styles. So this is very important. And in my past relationship is when I really truly understood and learned these and why things ended up the way that they ended up with the both of us. Attachment styles are patterns of how we connect to others. They're deeply influenced by our early experiences. So if you grew up in a home where your needs were met consistently, you're likely to develop a secure attachment style. And this means that you feel safe trusting others and being vulnerable in relationships. But if your caregivers were inconsistent, neglectful, overly critical, you might develop one of the insecure attachment styles. And I am going to give you those three. So the first one is anxious attachment. This happens when love feels unpredictable. So you might feel yourself craving closeness, but fearing abandonment. So maybe you're the one texting constantly or needing reassurance that your partner loves you. I was in a relationship like this, and he was an arc, but I look back and I feel so bad for 24-year-old me, because I remember I used to be like, you don't tell me you love me. You don't tell me you're beautiful. And like 34-year-old me now would go back and be like, baby, he don't like you. He don't even like himself. But I was in a point where it was like, oh, he chose me. Y'all can't see it, but I'm using air quotes. Like, oh, he picked me. And it was just like, I needed that constant reassurance that like, even though you're here, like, do you genuinely like me? Do you genuinely want me here? Right? Now, when I got out of that relationship, then I went from my anxious attachment style to developing an avoidant attachment style. And this is what that looks like. If you grew up learning that your emotional needs were not going to get met, you might have learned to suppress them. So this is something that I went through as well. This can lead to keeping people at arm's length and avoiding vulnerability and fearing intimacy. Y'all, I was so bad with this. Like, I would date a guy and the guy would be literally perfect. And it would scare the dog shit out of me. Because I felt like every single time I let somebody get close to me, they hurt me. Every time somebody seemed like they were safe, they hurt me. And so when I got out of that relationship I told you guys about, it was like, I don't want none of y'all looking at me. Don't touch me. Don't none of that. But then I'd be like, oh, I'm lonely, so let me let somebody in. And it was just a cycle of chaos for like literally no fucking reason at all. Like none. And then I realized like it comes also from having a very hot and cold parent. So my mother was very hot and cold. Very hot and cold. And I realize now that like even in certain friendships, I can see that I had friends that were like that with me. And it's all like a way to control you, right? So the last one is disorganized attachment. And this one is a mix of both anxious and avoidant behaviors. This one describes my entire dating history to a T. Up until the light bulb just went off in my head a few months ago. This one is a mix of both anxious and avoidant behaviors, and it often stems from chaotic or unsafe childhood environments where love and fear were intertwined. As adults, this can lead to relationships that feel intense, confusing, or even toxic. And baby, let me tell you. Oof. The good news is, though, that attachment styles are not fixed. There are patterns, and patterns can change. So once you become aware of how these unconscious behaviors show up in your relationship, then you can work to heal those things. And that doesn't have to be your complete story. And that's where I am right now. So how does childhood trauma actually play out when it comes to who we choose as partners? The short answer is that we're drawn to what's familiar. So if you grew up in a home where love felt conditional or inconsistent, you may find yourself drawn to partners who are emotionally unavailable or unpredictable. And it's not because you want to suffer, it's just because your nervous system has learned that this kind of dynamic is normal. And it's often called repetition compulsion. It's the subconscious drive to recreate familiar emotional experiences, even if they were painful, and in the hopes of finally fixing them. This is something that I had bad. I used to literally feel like I could just love people into treating me right. And oh my God, y'all, the dark night of the soul that I had when I realized that, like, you can't do that with people. Because if that's the case, it would have worked by now. For example, if you had a parent who was critical or distant, you may find yourself in relationships where you're constantly trying to earn approval or affection. Or if you grew up in a chaotic home, you might feel bored or restless in stable relationships, even though they're healthy. It's not about blaming ourselves or our parents. It's just about understanding that these patterns are survival mechanisms. They're how we learned how to cope. But as adults, we have the power to choose differently. So let's talk solutions. The good news is that you don't have to be stuck in these patterns forever. Healing is possible, and it starts with self-awareness. So here are some steps to begin shifting out of trauma-driven relationship patterns. The first thing to do is identify your patterns. So this is what I've been doing recently, is you take a step back and you reflect on your past relationships. Are there common themes? I got to a point, y'all, where I literally looked up and I said, okay, I've been in a relationship with the same person, just with different faces. So what is it about me that keeps choosing these people or keeps attracting these people or is not seeing, the red flags, And so do you notice like the same dynamics repeating? Awareness is the first step to change. So once you can work that thing out, then you can start healing those areas in you that is causing you to, align with those particular kind of energies or individuals. Work on your self-worth is the next one. Often, childhood trauma leaves us feeling unworthy of love. And this is why a lot of us try to prove ourselves worthy of love, or we try to earn people's love, or we try to earn being treated right. When you truly start to work on like your self-compassion, and it's not going to be easy, but just start practicing it. Affirm that you deserve a healthy, fulfilling relationship. Go see the lady, because y'all know I'm going to say that. Go see the lady. Also, journaling and mindfulness can help. And just, take some time out for you. I don't care if it's 10 minutes, y'all. However much time you have in your day. But you just take a little time to and for you. And sow into you. A lot of us, we give so much to everybody else and everything else around us. And we don't sow into ourselves enough. And a lot of us, like if you're, like I said, if you're like myself, that's was a parentified oldest daughter, you literally were taught that you weren't important. You were literally taught to take care of everybody else and put everybody else before yourself. Learn to regulate your emotions. Trauma can leave your nervous system in fight or flight mode, which can make relationships feel overwhelming. Practices like deep breathing, meditation, and somatic therapy can help you calm your system and respond to triggers more thoughtfully. This is something else that I also worked on. And a big thing for me, in regulating my emotions was also to open my mouth and speak up when something was not right. Because I literally would find myself going, it's okay, I'm okay, it's all right, nope, don't worry about it, I'm okay. And then I didn't even want to feel my feelings. So I may be often, I may get angry and I go sit in my car. But I wouldn't want to sit with that emotion because it hurt too bad. And I got tired of feeling those feelings. So I had to start sitting in that. I literally got to a point where I just forced myself to sit in those feelings and feel them until they no longer affected me, and really talk to myself and ask myself, how are we feeling? How did we get here? What the hell happened? Things like that. Communicate your needs. For many of us, voicing your needs feels terrifying, especially when we learned early on that our needs were not important. But healthy relationships thrive on communication, so start small and build from there. One of the things that I can definitely say is that I I'm so grateful for my best friend. My best friend created a space for me to be able to work out whatever feelings I was having. If I needed to, cry a little bit, whatever it was, I had her there to really show me like, hey, how you're feeling it's okay. How you're feeling is normal. Like there's nothing wrong with it. And hey, you know what? I had my own trauma. So let me tell you, what I had to work through in therapy. It's not always easy creating safe relationships with people because some people will take your trauma and they'll use that against you, and I get that. But there's so many different ways to find support. There's Reddit, there's message boards, there's whatever. You just have to understand that like you're not by yourself. And if you can communicate these needs with the healthy people around you, it makes it so much easier when you get around somebody and you realize, that doesn't really work for me. And that's okay. And lastly, I'm going to say it because I always do. Seek support. Go see the lady if you need to. Healing childhood trauma often requires professional guidance. Therapy, especially approaches like EDMR or trauma-informed counseling, can help you process your past. So for myself, the two main people that helped me a lot in this journey, you can find them here on YouTube, is Patrick Teehan and the Crappy Childhood Fairy. And what I love about the both of them is that they break down what you've gone through, and they do it in a way where it's like it comes from a loving place. So like with Patrick Teehan, what he'll do is he may have a segment on like narcissistic mothers, right? And he shows you what that looks like. And it's funny because it seems comfortable to you, right? And then he'll show you what a healthy relationship looks like. And it feels uncomfortable because you're like, oh, you wouldn't even know if it smacks you in the face, right? And then like with Crappy Childhood Fairy, what I love is a lot of her work is on how people's relationships have manifested from their childhoods. And how, of course, you're in this unhealthy relationship because you've been in one with your parents this entire time. Of course, you would go for the drug addict and have compassion for him because your mom chose drugs over you or whatever the case is. So I would say the biggest thing is just learning who you are. Because I would say get back to you, but I know that for myself, I had to really sit down with me and say, who am I? Who am I? What do I like? And what do I like outside of the things that people are telling me I should like, or my parents, or, whatever the case is. So that is all I have for you all today. I really hope that this helps you guys, whoever needed it. It's been a journey for me. It's not a race. It's a marathon. It's something that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. But I really hope that, this resonates with whoever it was meant for, and that you understand that you're not a unicorn. You're not alone. A lot of us, unfortunately, we were brought into this world and we didn't receive the support that we needed. But that is why you have folks like myself that want you to know that, I hear you, I see you, and you're not crazy. You just been through some shit. So I appreciate y'all. I will talk to y'all in the next one. Bye.